Willkommen. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean Huggins, and this is React with Hugs. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are going to be taking a look at a topic that I think is very topical right now. A topic that is topical. Yeah, I know words. I know words real good. Anyways, check this out. Can you get German citizenship? Chances are a lot of you guys, probably almost all of you guys, are already German citizens, but still, this is more for me to find out. Can I become a German citizen? This is from Feli from Germany. Link to the original video down in the description as always. How to get German citizenship by descent. Oh, baby. So I'm already married to a German, so I assume that would help in a different way. Like I could probably use Isa to become a German citizen. But this is from descent, meaning your ancestors, I assume. So I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna be German moving forward. I don't know. Let's see. I do have German ancestors because both of my parents took ancestor DNA tests and it came back that I had German ancestry, but I don't know what the requirements are. So we're gonna find out together. Maybe I will be a German in the future. Who knows? Let's find out. Los geht's.
Did you know that you might be eligible for German citizenship? About 50 million Americans have German ancestry, but what most of them don't know is that if they fit certain criteria, they can actually obtain German citizenship today without ever living in Germany.
Okay, I did live in Germany. Maybe that'll help.
Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany.
I would love to be able to get dual citizenship with, I mean, even if it's not German, if it's anywhere in the European Union, any country in the European Union, if I could get dual citizenship, that would make like travel and work and everything just like so much more convenient. Anyways.
Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio since 2016. Now, when it comes to citizenship and how to obtain it, most countries follow one of two principles. The first one is called jus soli, which is Latin for right of soil, meaning that a person automatically becomes a citizen of a country if they're born within the country's territory. That's how citizenship works here in the US. If a baby is born on US soil, it automatically becomes a US citizen. Americans also refer to this as birthright citizenship, and it's a principle that's particularly common here in North and South America, including in countries like Canada, Mexico, Panama, Argentina, Brazil, and many more. However, you may have heard that just a few months ago, President Trump actually signed an executive order to end birthright citizenship in the US and to only grant it if at least one parent is a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident, aka a green card holder. But as of right now, the executive order has been blocked by several federal courts, so we'll have to see if the US law on citizenship will change in the near future.
Yeah, I don't suspect the courts to really stop much. Can't really count on that anymore nowadays, unfortunately. Anyways.
Or not. The second common principle for citizenship is called Usanguinous, which translates to right of blood. So this is when a country bases citizenship on descent.
They want my blood?
This is the case in Germany, for example, where you're only born as a German citizen if one of your parents is a citizen as well, regardless of your place of birth. This is also how citizenship works in France, in Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, and almost all European countries.
Well, I'm already out because neither of my parents were born in Germany, so I'm already out. Dang it!
And this principle also exists here in the US in addition to the right of soil, because if an American citizen has their baby abroad, so not on US soil, it's still going to be a US citizen in most cases due to one of the parents being a citizen. Now, of course, the full scope of a country's citizenship laws gets a little more complicated than that, and most countries also offer ways of becoming a citizen later in life, such as through naturalization, which is how I obtained my US citizenship. But we're going to focus on the Usanguinous principle in Germany.
So she has American citizenship. I wonder if she had to renounce her German citizenship to get the American one, or if she is now a dual citizen. I would assume she's probably a dual citizen. I can't imagine she would want to renounce her German citizenship just to be an American citizen. If I had to guess, but I don't know.
Germany today, so citizenship through descent, because that's the reason why many Americans might actually be eligible for German citizenship without even knowing about it. But how do you find out if this applies to you?
Yeah.
I actually got to talk to Annette Werth about this, who is the Consul General at the German Embassy in Washington, D.C.
You have to know that German citizenship is...
Dude, I used to live in Washington, D.C. I could have gone to this lady. Dang it. Another missed opportunity.
usually forwarded from one generation to the next generation. So it is important to see whether your parents could have passed on the German citizenship to you. And this might be the case if the grandparents or great-grandparents were Germans and didn't lose the German citizenship.
So in order to...
Oh, hold on a second. The grandparents or great-grandparents didn't lose German citizenship. Okay. My parents and grandparents, definitely not German, but great-grandparents, I would have to think about. We might be getting closer. We might be getting somewhere here.
To find out whether or not you're eligible, you'll have to look into your ancestral lineage to see if the right to German citizenship was passed on from your German ancestors all the way until today. And for that, we mainly need to look at the parent's citizenship status at the time of birth for the next ancestor in line. For example, let's say that your paternal grandfather was the one who came to the US from Germany, and at the time of your dad's birth, your grandfather was a German citizen and hadn't given up or lost his German citizenship in any way. He then would have passed on the right to German citizenship to your dad, and your dad would have most likely passed on that right to you, even if he never actively claimed his German citizenship. Now, unfortunately, at different points in time, there were laws in place that in some instances led to people losing their German citizenship, or that restricted the German citizenship from being passed on to the next generation. So let's talk about the most relevant laws here that you need to be aware of in order to determine whether or not you have a right to German citizenship today. The first scenario I want to look at is if your family was a victim of the Nazi regime, because if you, or more likely your ancestors, were deprived of German citizenship.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. There is a lot, there is a growing supply of these guys, the N-words, cropping up in America. Maybe I'm a victim. Maybe I'm a victim somehow. No, I don't think I am. I was never denied citizenship from the N-words, so damn it.
During the Third Reich between 1933
and
and 1945 for political, racial, or religious reasons, there are different laws in place that allow those affected and their descendants to restore their German citizenship. The legal basis for this is actually enshrined in the German Constitution, the Grundgesetz, but in the last few years, several additional laws have been passed to ensure that even more families who suffered under the Nazi regime are able to get their German citizenship back.
Since 2021, we have an additional law which says that also persons and their ancestors who lost German citizenship as a result of persecution or who were excluded from acquiring it, because there were some persons who were excluded by the Nazi regime to acquire German citizenship.
So they didn't have it revoked, they just never had it to begin with.
Correct. And this is especially true for those people who naturalized in the US before November 1941 after fleeing from Germany.
The German embassy, as well as the various German consulates in the US, regularly host naturalization ceremonies for people who reclaimed their German citizenship.
Dude, that's awesome.
In this post, the German consulate in New York shared that in 2024 alone, they restored citizenship to over 600 people whose families fell victim to the Nazi regime. Now, unrelated to the Third Reich, another important law to keep in mind when determining whether German citizenship was passed on or not is this one. From 1871, the year that Germany officially became a unified country for the first time, up until 1904, German immigrants automatically lost their German citizenship after living abroad for 10 years, unless they renewed their German passports, registered with a German consulate, or visited Germany within those 10 years. But in a time before cars, and especially before air travel, most Germans never did any of that after they left.
Of course.
And at the time when a man lost...
Yeah, you couldn't just go online back then and renew your passport online or something. Like, yeah, dude. And bro, oh my gosh. And you couldn't fly, so you had to take a boat. So you're talking about like a month-long boat trip back to Germany to renew your passport or whatever. Bro, oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, that's not happening.
His citizenship, his wife and minor children automatically lost theirs too. So in most cases, if your ancestors left Germany before the year 1904, they probably weren't able to pass on their German citizenship.
Wow.
And therefore, you're most likely not eligible to apply for it today. However, it's definitely still...
I would say that that would probably have been my family, if I had to guess.
Still worth looking into at least. Maybe your family is an exception. I'll tell you about some great resources at the end of the video.
Okay, good. Because I was wondering, how do you even look up your family history like that? I don't know my family.
Another way that people automatically lost their German citizenship was when they took on the citizenship of another country, such as the United States. Because up until 2024, so last year, Germany only allowed dual citizenship in rare cases. So if your ancestors took on US citizenship at some point, or the citizenship of another country, the question of whether or not their right to citizenship was passed on depends on whether they still had German citizenship at the time of birth of their child, aka the next ancestor in line. To make this a little less confusing, if your original German ancestor was your great-grandfather and he became a US citizen as an adult before your grandfather was born, the right to citizenship was not passed on, unfortunately.
Hold on a second, I gotta take
if your
some notes here.
great-grandfather naturalized as a minor, or if your grandfather was born before the great-grandfather naturalized, the right to German citizenship was passed on to your grandfather, and he may have been able to pass it on to his children up until today. Now, all of this becomes even trickier when the ancestors in your lineage included women, because as we all know, women weren't always treated equally throughout history.
What?
For example, between 1914 and 1953, when a German woman got married to a foreigner, she automatically lost her German citizenship. So if your grandmother came from Germany and got married to an American during that time, she automatically would have lost her German citizenship and therefore wouldn't have been able to pass it on to her children.
Dude, if you lose your citizenship after marrying marrying an American, for example, but you're not an American citizen either, you're just married to an American citizen, does that mean that you have no citizenship anywhere? What does that mean? What does that make you? How is that possible? Whoa. Okay, anyways, doesn't matter.
In addition to that, there were a bunch of regulations during that time about whether a child got German citizenship, depending on whether or not the parents were married and whether it was the father or the mother who was a German citizen. Up until 1974, children born in wedlock only got automatic German citizenship if the father was German, for example, but not if the mother was German. But I'm not gonna go too much into detail about all of the possible scenarios here, because there are a lot, but I will link some websites down below for you guys where you can look into all of the different what ifs. Now, the good news is that if your ancestors lost the right to German citizenship due to any of these gender discriminating laws, you can now actually get that right to citizenship back in most cases. The German government signed a law in 2021, the Fourth Act amending the Nationality Act, that grants a 10-year period up until the year 2031, during which people who were unfairly affected by these laws and their descendants can declare German citizenship after all.
Oh, so you're saying there's a chance Oh, crap. Guys. Okay, hold on a second. Now, I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know what the possibilities are, but I do know that because of this, there's a chance.
The exact rules vary a little depending on whether the next ancestor in line was born before or after the founding of the Federal Republic of Germany in 1949.
Okay.
But again, for details, I'll link the official German government website down below for you guys. To claim your German citizenship through Ancestry, you don't actually need to live in Germany, speak German, or have ever been to Germany. And you don't have to give up your current citizenship either. That's the good news. But the whole process might take a lot of work on your end and can take several months or even up to several years to be completed.
That's fine.
Where is a good place to start this process? If you're an American and you know that you have German ancestors, where do you go to find more information and how would you start the process?
In general, it's the Federal Office of Administration in Germany, which is the competent authority for naturalization.
Bundeswehrverwaltungsamt. Whoa. Okay.
Applications abroad. But of course, the diplomatic missions abroad, the German consulates, we have 8 German consulates in the United States. They help you to see whether you're eligible, which documents you need, and they can also process your application to this authority in Germany. And you can make an appointment for citizenship with us, with the competent, relevant consulate in the United States. Or you could even call and then we can consult you.
Okay, so contact the consulates, the German consulates. And is there a good website that people can go to find out more information about this?
Definitely. We have our website, germany.info. And there is also a category, consular services and citizenship. And there we have all information about how to obtain a citizenship, in which constellations you might be eligible for German citizenship.
So as she said, you can reach out to your German consulate for questions and for help. My region here in the Midwest is covered by the German consulate in Chicago, but there are also consulates in San Francisco, LA, New York, Boston, Atlanta, Houston, Miami, and of course the embassy in Washington, D.C. that you can reach out to about this. Additionally, I've come across some amazing forums and threads online with people who have a lot of knowledge about all of this. I found this guide on Reddit, for example, that basically walks you through all of the important questions about your lineage to find out if you might be eligible for German citizenship or not. A huge
Yeah, my problem is I don't know my ancestors. So I don't even know how I can answer all these questions because I don't even know who my ancestors are. So I got to start there if I ever wanted to do this. Anyways.
Shout out to the person that put all of that together. That's honestly amazing. And there are lots of people in those threads that are going through the process themselves right now, and that can probably help you too if you have any questions. And of course, there are similar groups on Facebook and other platforms. I'll link some of those in the description down below for you guys. At the end of the day, what's important is that you're able to prove your ancestral lineage and that the right to citizenship was in fact passed down from one generation to the next. So you might need to track down birth certificates, marriage certificates, naturalization certificates, possibly immigration records, etc. Meaning you might have to do some genealogy research to gather all of the relevant documents before you can actually start your application process. And just a heads up, this could also include that you have to contact a local archive or church in Germany. But for genealogy too, there are some amazing forums and groups on the internet where people exchange tips and experiences with each other, so you won't be alone in this. And I know that a lot of people also sign up for Ancestry.com to access family trees and other helpful records. And then once you've gathered all of the required documents, you can fill out the official forms, which I'll also link down below. And these forms actually have to be filled out in German, but they do provide some English-speaking instructions. And of course, you can always try to use translator tools like Google Translate, DeepL.
Isa is my Google Translate.
Or one of the many AI options. Who of you has German ancestry? Let me know in the comments below. And are you interested in...
I have German ancestry according to my parents' DNA test, but I don't know how far back it goes. That's the problem. I don't know when my ancestors came to America, other than my one grandma who came to America when she was a little child, and she came from Lithuania. But my other grandparents and other great-grandparents, I don't know where they came from or when or anything. I don't know much of anything. So that's the biggest problem that I have. So I would have to research my whole family tree before I would be able to do any of this stuff. But according to my parents' DNA tests, I am the highest percentage, at least ancestry-wise, I'm the highest percentage of like Irish, Scottish, and British, like that whole area. So I assume it would be easier to trace my lineage back to that region of the world as opposed to German. Though German is, I think, right after like Irish and Scottish and British. Yeah, I don't know. I got too much stuff. My DNA is like a freaking public bathroom porta potty. It's everything is mixed in there. Either way, I mean, I think dual citizenship would be pretty cool because I love Germany. So, I don't know. That'd be cool. Anyways, I'm curious what you guys, the experts, think of this whole situation. Let me know your thoughts. Leave your comments down in the comment section below. But that's all the time that I have for today. So thank you guys so much for being here. And as always, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.